The Unrelating podcasts are meant to be for education and entertainment. They don't constitute a service or advice. For personal struggles, please reach out to a medical or mental health professional. For some reason, I've been getting sent a lot of like Gen X or, kids of the 80s. Like my sister and I always exchange those. And it's just, it does make me think like how we grew up versus how kids are growing up today.
I saw something similar. The fact that we, well, first of all, we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have social media. We didn't have, we sound like such old people, by the way. Oh my God.
I know. Like mentally, we're still like what? Early 30s, would you say? That's where your brain is?
Oh, totally. And physically,
I'm like 86.
Yes. The 80s was a great time to grow up, no question. And 90s too, to a certain degree.
Also depends where, like geographically,
sure.
Where you were growing up and, kind of what your household looked like. But
sure,
definitely different temptations, different types of struggles than what kids these days have to face. So I'm excited for the guest we have today that's going to talk about trying to raise two young boys in an ever increasing kind of weird society when it comes to being male and just interacting in the world.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is something that I can certainly relate to and probably add my, 1 cent. Oh, we don't have pennies anymore, do we? They're gone.
No. Oh, darn. You're going to have to add your nickel.
I may or may not have an opinion on this topic today, so.
Well, you represent all men when you talk on the show, so.
No pressure, right? No pressure.
No, but your perspective will be very valuable. Because you know better than myself or the guest what it's like.
I just don't know what it's like to be a young man growing up with today's technology and pressure and this incel kind of weirdness going on with men sometimes, and
yeah, like the proliferation of a new kind of male identity.
Yeah, we grew up as boys and girls, but we grew up, being very social. We built a lot of interpersonal relationships, right? And that seems to be kind of disappearing a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the prevailing type of relationship now is parasocial, and there's definitely drawbacks to that.
Based on that, Michelle, let's find out what those are.
Okay, sounds good. I'm excited.
Hi, I'm Kelly.
And I'm Michelle.
Welcome to Unrelating with Kelly and Michelle.
I've been a licensed marriage and family therapist for over 2 decades.
And I'm the show producer and co-host.
Together, we'll explore how we engage in relationships,
why we do what we do,
and what causes people to unrelate.
Joining us today is Abby Eckel. Abby is an educator, online content creator, and the mother of 2 sons, ages 8 and 10. Abby, how are you doing today?
I'm good. We're bracing for a winter storm this weekend, so
yes,
had to make the regular grocery trip, make sure we're all stocked up on everything. Boys have matching gloves. Seem to have a lot of gloves and no matches for the gloves. So.
I can absolutely relate to that. Yeah,
yeah, but I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Where are you joining us from, Abby?
Kansas City.
We're hoping you guys stay warm. I mean, Michelle and I are both from the Midwest. I'm from Michigan originally, and we both are from Michigan originally. Our families are still back in Michigan. Yeah, so we grew up in this weather, and although not quite this bad, this is pretty chilly.
Mm-hmm. I know we were back for the holidays, and it was snowing kind of nonstop, and it had been a while since we'd been on the road driving during a snowstorm, and it's just so nerve-wracking. Like we were both so tense just trying to get down the highway.
Yeah,
with all the ice and everything. Yeah,
I'll stay home.
Yeah, you forget about those moments.
Yeah,
when you live in
especially
California.
When you work from home. Like I rarely leave that often and travel on the highway anymore. So certainly, if it's snow, that's a no-go for me.
Yeah.
So just some backstory on Abby. I read an article that you were quoted in, and it was specifically about the Manosphere and how parents are dealing with this with their boys. And it mentioned how you and your husband monitor your boys' online activity. You try to keep the lines of communication open and try to steer them towards healthier models of masculinity. Mm-hmm. But there's really little you can do to stop the influence of other boys who have already been radicalized online. So I guess just to kind of kick this off, Abby, be a little backstory on you and challenges you've been seeing raising your boys.
If I had talked to me 11 years ago when I was pregnant with my first son, I wouldn't have even crossed my mind, like not even a thing. But the fire hose of information that is at their disposal, like the amount of information that is like at their fingertips, that is like purposely being put in front of them, is so much, and the radicalization is very prominent. It's the thing that keeps me up at night the most. The thing that I, am probably the most afraid of. So it is a constant thing on my radar. And then as as a content creator myself, who is in this space, who has been in this space for 5 years, who has taken on the brunt of a lot of hate from men as well. I've had firsthand experience with it. I have the comments, I have the conversations with, some of these men that feel this very radicalized way about women and about, themselves. And it's just really difficult. So 8 and 10, my kids don't have phones. They're not on computers. They have minimal time on devices. So my kids get 2 hours on the weekends for devices. That's it. Like young boys, they love YouTube. They love watching. My oldest is really into skating right now, so he's watching a lot of like skating tutorials. And my youngest is still, kind of boyish and silly. And but it's creeping in to my 10-year-old, in all these little ways that I'm just not, just felt really unprepared for. But I feel like I have to constantly be on guard and my ear to the ground and paying attention and, like noticing things and having conversations about them before they get too far gone or before they hear things from their friends, also likely incorrectly. But yeah, it is, it's just been a constant thing, and it's, it's probably going to be like my lifelong mission to fight off the red pill manosphere for my sons.
Yeah.
But when you think of the level of effort and work it takes to stay vigilant, that's kind of the disheartening part, because it's relentless, like you said. It's not like you can, have one conversation every so often.
No, it is like, and I think I said this in the article, hands down the most exhausting thing about being a parent right now to young boys.
And you bring up a great point, which is even though you're limiting their screen time and their access, their online access, it's pervasive. It gets to them. It's a friend showing them a video at school. It's, just hearing language that then starts to get normalized because they're hearing it all the time, even if they're not using it or, may not even know what it means. There's a lot of kiddos out there using phrases they don't even know the weight of what they're saying.
That was, I think, one of the things that I have to be more proactive and less reactive to these situations. We were in the car, and I think my oldest called my youngest a pussy. And the knee-jerk reaction in me is to whip around and be like, hey, wait, don't say that. I know that when I do that, it really shuts them down. They're like, oh shit, I'm in trouble. Instead of being like, okay, this is a safe space for learning and exploring and being curious. And so I was like, hey, that's an interesting word. Where did you hear that? And he was like, I heard one of the kids say it at recess the other day. And I was like, what do you think that means? And he was like, I don't know. Yeah. So we went over it and we talked about how it's an insult that is essentially used to emasculate another man. It's another word for a vagina that women have specifically and is seen as weak. Therefore, it's, being tied to women being weak. And I was like, is mom weak? And they were like, no. And I was like, okay, so let's not use words we don't know the meaning to. And secondly, this is really important. I know it seems really small when you're just saying words, but all of these words tie back to a larger overarching kind of hatred and messaging of boys and what they're seeing.
Yeah. One of the biggest parts of the manosphere and kind of the bro culture is to just insidiously keep repeating that women are lesser than and that they should be subordinate. It's very hard for a young boy to not internalize that. Think of all the things in society that we've internalized and gotten programmed to think. just based on it floating around out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it's targeted, specifically to young boys, of course it's going to hit differently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think it's important too, just to define for our listeners, what the manosphere is, because I actually had to look it up before this conversation. I guess the manosphere is defined as like a varied collection of websites, blogs, and online forums promoting masculinity, misogyny, and opposition to feminism. Does that sound accurate to both of you?
Yep.
Yeah. It can be a dark rabbit hole, and I'm quoting the article, where YouTubers and bro podcasters mask their misogyny and self-help, fitness tips, and pickup artist style dating advice, which again we're seeing more and more of this, right, throughout social media.
Yeah. And the underlying message then that radicalizes boys and men is the idea that if you have any kind of, struggles, it's the woman's fault. Mm-hmm. Women are to blame for you being alone, for you not dating, for you not succeeding, for you feeling lonely.
Yeah. Very insidious stuff.
I mean, growing up, I always reference back to my childhood, but this wasn't an issue. Okay. I mean, I didn't think it was an issue growing up. I'm a child of the 80s, and we had a different kind of social, I guess, or sort of cultural zeitgeist at that time. I mean, obviously movies like The Breakfast Club, if you recall that, you were dealing with just cultural clashes or cultural perspectives, right? Clashing, right?
Yeah.
Both male and female. I mean, I remember getting yelled at from my mom, like, speaking of mothers correcting their sons. But, I may or may not have made some homophobic comments when I was that age, right? Not really knowing, not knowing what I was talking about, not knowing at that time any people in the LGBTQ community, I'm talking as a 10, 12-year-old. So thank God my mom corrected me. And obviously I have since certainly changed my thought process. I'm only hoping if this is happening with some of these young boys, they are able to course correct, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. My husband and I try to really be proactive versus reactive. Much harder to unlearn these things than to already question them with critical thinking moving forward. And that's something that, I've started, because a lot of this too is practicing critical thinking, because it's so easy. They're already very isolated and already, especially through COVID, we've got these teenage boys, who aren't necessarily good at socializing. And, then they're being fed this like, oh, you need to get girls. And if girls don't want you, then that's their fault. And it leads to this massive type of incel culture with my oldest, teaching him these types of critical thinking. So I have followed and found some of these podcasters and streamers who are very much red pill. And I've saved a couple of their like short videos, some that aren't like too mature, and like, we'll just watch them and we'll look at the headlines. We'll look at the caption. We'll look at the thumbnails. I'll say, what did you think about this? We watched one the other day where I think the caption was like, woman goes crazy at creator. They sit down, they're in the subway, and he says something to her like, what are your thoughts on gender affirming surgeries or something like that? And she was like, that's not real. That's not happening. Kids aren't having that. And he asked her something else that was like a follow-up that was maybe like Christian geared, because she was like, are you just going to ask me about like Christian ideologies because I'm a Jew? And so I was like, okay, no, what did that headline say? And it was like, woman goes crazy at creator. And I was like, do you think that she was crazy? And my son was like, no. And I was like, okay. I was like, what do you think would like make her seem crazy? I was like, was she using a lot of like wild gestures? Was she yelling? Was she in his face? And he was like, no, I don't think so. It's questioning that like this idea that women who are shutting down this type of silly rhetoric are crazy. And, we talk about women being Karens and things like that, and how all of this is, derogatory towards women showing any side of emotion and pushback, and how we kind of label them that way. So,
and you're reality testing, which is super important when there's this like zeitgeist out there that they're hearing over and over, and you're connecting it to reality to say like, okay, there's this idea that they're trying to push on you, but think about what that would actually look like. Do you think, like you said, do you think mommy's weak? No. Do you think if mommy and daddy both should get a vote or only daddy should get to vote? Like, these are questions, and they'll be like, no, of course not. And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
So let's think of like real world consequences of having these messages around.
Yeah.
Do you think other parents are doing what you're doing, Abby, with their boys?
No.
Not enough. No.
Not enough.
Based on that, then, I mean, you talk about critical thinking, which I think is a great resource. But what advice, or I guess what tools could you and your husband offer other parents who may be struggling, or have younger boys who have to worry about this in the future?
Definitely monitoring what they're watching, what they have access to. We turned off, like, my kids can't play Roblox. They're not playing games on their Xbox where they're like in game rooms with other people. So they're not being exposed to that. They're not hearing that type of thing. And just genuinely like keeping open lines of communication, leading with curiosity. Like I said, if I go like hard at my kids as if they're in trouble for saying something or watching something or doing something, that tends to get them to shut down really quickly. Especially my youngest. He's already like a non-talker who's like, I don't want to have this conversation. I'm going to shut up. Now I'm upset and now I feel like ashamed. So, but if we are curious, and instead of saying, we don't watch those people, we don't listen to that, we don't say that, I found that leading with curiosity yields much better results, especially with, I can only say with boys because I don't have these conversations with little girls, but being proactive. I don't think parents understand. Like, if you're not like, I'm chronically online. That's my job. I live here. That's what I do. Most parents, not chronically online. They truly don't understand what is showing up in their kids' feed, how subliminal the messaging is, how easy it is for them to fall into one thing after another. Kids are having phones so much earlier and access to social media so much sooner, way earlier than their developing brains are probably anywhere near ready for.
Sure.
And I truly don't think parents understand how harmful and how pervasive and how normalized this type of messaging and content from these red pill manosphere creators and streamers is. My husband doesn't. He's not on social media at all. I am having to come and be like, see this? This is why. This is why the kids can't watch YouTube. And he already knows, but like, these are the things. Like, I need you to also be aware so that you know how to have these conversations, because at some point, my kids are going to go from being, mama's boys to dad is the one that we want to listen to. We all that is the natural evolution of boys, and it will happen. So, like, we both have to be ready. And because you're not on social media, I need you to dabble and wade into the water so you can see just how easy it is for them to find this stuff and how quickly it's pushed to them.
I want to also point out that at some point, men need to take more responsibility for this part of the load.
Sure.
Yes.
Exactly what you were saying. Like, if the messaging is coming from a man that, like, actually empathy is a good thing, and look, here's what healthy masculinity is, and this is what we're normalizing, and this is how we're accepting you. Because if a young boy feels accepted by an older male for being empathetic or sharing his feelings, and then they're not going to also be so drawn to a niche in the internet that's telling them a different story. If they already feel like, oh, I'm accepted for being this way.
Yeah. There's going to be things that they go through that I can't relate to, that I don't have the words for and the guidance on. And that's when they're going to need their dad and other men and boys that, be it coaches, be it teachers, whatever, who are there to also help guide them through that.
Yes. I mean, studies have shown, to your point, that young boys need those male role models, especially in their teens. I mean, there is that transition period from mom to dad, and they tend to mirror that behavior oftentimes of their fathers. So what is his position, I guess, on all of this?
We're on the same page. When it's talking about critical thinking and our sons, because this is probably my area of expertise, I will tend to take the lead. But having the conversations that he's hearing with his friends, teaching him confidence and pushback and modeling it as well. Like, so, I mean, they see their dad cook, they see their dad clean, they see their dad love me, treat me right, speak to me well, speak about other women well, work with other women in their job, speak highly of other women. I think that's a huge thing too.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel like a lot of men had that model from their fathers. And not saying that they're like outright, hateful towards their wives or speaking abusively towards them on an ongoing basis. I just don't think that they, have really challenged that of like, oh, okay, some of the traditional gender norm things still really hold on to like millennial and Xennial and Gen X parents, men in particular. And so they're going up against that too. But I feel like when there is an example of men not just talking it, but leading it by example is even more important.
It makes me wonder, this current group of misogynistic men, where did they learn it from? Like these guys who are in their 30s right now, or maybe early 40s or late 20s, like where was it? A father, lack of father? Because they seem to have sort of started this whole thing. Where did that come from?
I don't know. I wish I knew. Like, I wish I was like, it's right here. This was the thing that snowballed.
I feel like some of it isn't even about that theme so much as like the rise of social media made people realize that if they say provocative things, they gain more power and more influence. And suddenly, like, you just have to you have to push that envelope more and more in order to get more attention.
And you definitely do. That's definitely, I think social media has definitely played a very real issue in the divisiveness of people and their beliefs and the content that they consume. And I don't know, streamers and podcasters and creators and YouTubers, when you are a creator, you learn very quickly that like, oh, if you sensationalize things and you rage bait things, you get more engagement and you get more money and more people follow you. But then you have to keep doing that. You have to keep outdoing yourself.
Yep.
And then you just say worse stuff and worse stuff. Then you've got a collection of men. I think incel behavior and forums has been around for probably a really, really, really long time. Maybe not as easily findable and as like readily available as it is now. But I think it probably really maybe started there. And then these guys were like, oh yeah, it started in Reddit forums when it was like, oh, I'm struggling with this. And it was like, oh, well, this is all women's fault. And then that kind of snowballed. And then it creeped out of we don't have to hide in the shadows anymore of these forums and the dark web and Reddit. And now we're on saying it with our whole chest and our face on YouTube. And men are like, yeah, that's why nobody wants to date me and I can't get a job and I still live at home and I can't get into college. Like, it's women, it's immigrants, it's everybody else's problem. And we don't have anywhere to go and men aren't socialized and they don't have, the same platonic relationships as women because nobody's ever really allowed them to have non-sexual relationships with people or really push for them to understand that and need that. And so it's a real snowball. I don't know where, I couldn't tell you like this specific spot. but
I do believe that, echo chambers will be the death of us. Because, you end up just being reinforced into digging in your heels in one system of belief.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
And then you end up spending more time with those messages and you feel that sense of belonging, which is so frustrating because boys, 8 and 10 and teens and tweens, that's, if you think of Erickson's stages of development, that's when they're most trying to figure out their identity, where a sense of belonging is like their biggest priority with, social and friend groups. And so I can't think of a worse time to introduce these things.
And you're seeing a decline, I think, and I don't know the numbers, but like, especially since COVID, you're seeing a decline, like groups where boys can participate.
Third spaces, I think they call them, where, people can socialize in person and gain more social emotional skills.
Yeah. And so crucial, especially as you said, Michelle, in that age range. thinking back to me, I mean, oh my God, I was active in so many things growing up: soccer, Boy Scouts, church activities. With it was just nonstop. And having that now, I don't know if they have as much of that positive social interaction, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also as a kid, it's your job to figure out where the boundaries are, right? And you're going to push and push and push until you hit up against the absolute boundary. That's just something you do. We can't blame kids for that. That's their job. And so when the boundary keeps getting pushed and more like insidious things are happening and there's no line, that's so scary.
I love that, like, my oldest is, we call him the mayor because he talks to everybody. He knows everybody. Everybody likes him. He's always walking in, high-fiving people and hugging people. And then my youngest is very much more like timid and introverted. And so it's interesting. I'm grateful that we live in the neighborhood that we do. We have boys in and out of this house all the time. We're encouraging it. They have really good friends in this neighborhood. So we're encouraging them to get out and spend time with them. But they do want to be like, oh, can I just call him? And I'm like, no, you cannot. Go over there and talk to him. Yeah. Go spend time with him. And helping them cultivate those friendships, of like, hey, your friend's grandma just died. Like, have you asked how he's doing? Have you asked if he needs anything? Like, teaching them these traditionally feminine things of like, hey, when someone dies, you bring them food, you call, you see what they need, you do, these etiquette things that, my husband's like, I didn't know you did that. Like, right. Nobody told me you did that. And I'm like, I know. That's why I'm telling you. And we're going to tell the boys that this is what you do in these situations. Right. So, helping them understand like, oh, I like these people. I need to cultivate these relationships with people. These are important to me. It does take work to sustain them and keep them healthy and thriving. And how much better I feel when I have these people around me who support me and love me too.
And I mean, the optimist in me keeps thinking like positive traits are contagious in social settings.
Yes.
So whatever baseline you're starting with in your group, if those are the things that you're putting out, the rest of the group will follow.
Yeah, my son came home. It was last year sometime, and I was like going through his backpack, and there was this note from one of his friends, and I was like, I don't want to like, in his personal space. So I was like, hey, do you want to keep this somewhere? And he was like, oh yeah, so-and-so just wrote me this note because some of the kids on the playground were, being mean and making fun of me because I missed a goal in soccer. And my friend, wrote me this note, and, he was like, you can read it if you want. And, it was so sweet. It was like, you're one of my best friends. You've always had my back. Don't listen to those kids. You're the best soccer player on the team. Like, I love you, just, So I took a picture and I sent it to his mom, and I was like, we're doing something right. Like, we're getting there.
Another hard part for parents is holding the line when it comes to social media, or just being a little bit more micromanagey about what's being seen and having those conversations. I read a great quote from a Jonathan Safran for a book. It was, good parenting has nothing to do with satisfying your child's wants.
Yeah.
And I love that, because sometimes it's so hard to say like no cell phone, or no social media. And so parents then cave because they just like the kid convinces them they'll be miserable without it, just whatever happens. It's hard to hold those lines. So I think a lot of parents give up, and they throw their hands up and they say, well, I can't control this. It's the cat's already out of the bag.
Abby, do you feel like because you're talking about all these things you're doing with your boys, do you feel like you and your husband are on an island sometimes? Like, do you get a sense that other parents are kind of catching on?
I feel like a lot of the times we're on an island. I think my son's best friend that lives down the street, we might be on a very close island to them together. But for the most part, I do feel like we are on an island, because kind of like with the cell phone thing, like when my son's, you're 10. Who are you going to call? Like, absolutely not. This is stupid. Like,
right.
But it is a constant thing. I think a lot of parents think like, well, they're going to get one anyways. So like, what's it matter? Or like, oh, I'll give them one, but they can't have social media. And it is, and it's hard because you're like, well, everybody else has one, and you're like, well, I don't want my kid to be the reject and feel rejected and left out, and it's going to happen eventually. Like, what's the difference between like 14 and 10, you know? And so, you know, like Michelle said, they give in. I am a stubborn bull. Okay, it ain't happening, kid. Sorry, like you'll be all right. So it can very much feel like an island when my 8-year-old is like, oh, my friend has a phone, and I'm like, what?
I know.
What
I
do
hear
you
the same
mean?
thing. Yep.
I don't get it. Yes, it feels very isolating sometimes.
I saw something on social media the other day. It was, speaking of social media, but it was about how, remember growing up, or I guess growing up in the 80s when, you know, we would, what's the term, Michelle, when you're a latchkey kid where your parents
latchkey kid.
Yeah.
Okay, latchkey, where basically we would come home from school and we would be alone, or we would go out with our friends and we'd be gone until sundown or dinner. And our parents didn't know where we were and they didn't worry about it. And like that time is gone.
Yeah.
Right?
My sister just sent me a meme that said children of the 80s or Gen X or something, raised on hose water and neglect.
Yeah.
My mom, I was telling my kids, they were like, well, what did Noni do when you had to come home? Because I was telling my son I would like roam around the neighborhood and play in the ponds and stuff. And he was like, well, how did you know that it was time to come home? And I said, my mom would go outside and blast a whistle that you could hear for miles.
Yeah.
Wow.
And my brother and I knew, oh, Abby, like, that's your whistle. You got to go home. And I'd be like, okay, see ya. That was it.
Was it a coach whistle or what kind of whistle?
Yeah.
Wow.
She would scream.
I've heard
oh my
that
God,
too.
that woman could scream. Everybody knew. Oh, that's your mom. I'm like, yep, that's my mom. I gotta go. But it is, and we would probably be fine. Like my kids would probably roam around the neighborhood. But the thing is that, like, in my mind, when he was gone at the soccer field, there's a lot of teenagers up there. And my son's very trusting and very social. And my mind was like, oh, maybe those teenagers was like, you know, hey, do you want to go get like a drink or a snack or a soda or something? And my son was like, yeah, sure, right. You know, hop in the car. And not that those kids would ever like do anything wrong, but like, I don't know. And so having to like, okay, I just need to know where you are. And a lot of times too, my son will text me and be like, can you call and tell me I have to come home? And I'll be like, hey, you got to come home. He's like, okay, bye guys.
That's what becoming an adult is. He's you know, making decisions for himself. You know, being resilient, pre-adulting, I guess, making smart decisions, time management, whatever you want to call it. I had just read, or it was in the news, that Australia banned social media for kids under age 16. I think, you know, most countries should probably take a look at.
I think that's great. I think social media is worse than smoking on your mental health. And we don't let kids smoke until they're 18. Like, nope, none for you. When that brain is a little bit more developed and you can understand things a little bit better. Yeah, I think it's great. I wish more places would do it. I fear we have these platforms a little too close to the government at this point. But that's a discussion for another day. I think it's wonderful. I think it should happen. I won't let my kids have it for as long as humanly possible, without them, you know, running to their friends and using their friend's phone to have, you know, their own dummy Instagram accounts on their friend's phone. I don't want to like lose that trust with them and push it so far that, you know, they're making poor decisions, but at least laying the groundwork now of helping them understand how algorithms work. I mean, they know. I tell them, you know, they're like, I want to be a YouTuber when I grow up. And I'm like, no. They're like, what do you mean? Like, you're a content creator? And I'm like, I know. That's why you can't do it. I've seen what it's like. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody else. Not for children, you know. They're like, oh, but all these, you know, these family YouTubers. And I'm like, this is great, but.
Oh, I have something very much against the family YouTubers.
Oh, you and me both.
Yeah.
I fully support being creative, creating creative content. I fully support that. I mean, and if you want to do it on YouTube, great. But just remember that stuff lives forever, right? And you put it out there, you can't pull it back. Yeah. I mean, it's out, it's gone. So
and there's other things you can do. My 13-year-old, she uses Canva or one of those programs to like make little movies.
Yeah.
And she spent hours and hours doing it and get very fulfilled by it. And those are hours and hours she could have spent scrolling, you know?
Yeah.
That's probably a good segue for both of you. I guess what words of advice for parents of boys and actually the roles that mothers can play. This is a big problem.
I feel like a lot of generations kind of thought as boys is like, set it and forget it. Mm-hmm. Boys will be boys. They'll figure it out. No big deal. They condone a lot of the behavior. They didn't really think much of it. And, a lot of people didn't either, during those times. It was just, well, that's just what it is. That's just what boys do. That's just how they talk. And so it's really pushing back on that narrative and those beliefs and holding boys to higher standards. We have a book all about consent, teaching boys about consent, teaching them about body boundaries, teaching them about bodies, having these conversations about things earlier and earlier, the first time I think boys find porn, the average age is 9 years old. That's insane. But if they don't recognize those types of things, kind of paving the way for honest, uncomfortable conversations, if they do happen versus like, oh, if I find this, you're going to be in big trouble type of thing. But like, if you find this, what questions do you have? Let's keep it curious. That's what I always say. In pretty much every situation, ask questions, be curious, lead with curiosity, a safe space for them to be curious so that they trust you. They feel safe in coming to you with issues, with questions. Don't set it and forget it. Boys need more I don't want to say coddling, but they need more guidance. They need more specific things than girls do. Like that's fairly scientific, but just being there and being present, which is really hard because we're all doing a million different things. For me, it's mostly earning that trust and keeping these situations and having conversations in an organic way, when you can, and asking and answering questions, not just like, all right, time to sit down and talk about the birds and the bees kind of thing, but like we've been paving this way for a very long time now. So when it comes to the point of actual sex and how babies are made and things like that, it's not so foreign while weaving in things about consent. So we always use books. And I'm like, I want to teach them about these things, but I need it to be organic and not like I'm just having a sit down, awkward conversation with them. I lean on books. We read the book. What questions did you have? What did you find interesting? Those types of things. It takes a lot of work. Like so much work. So much work and like being active in their lives and knowing what's going on and monitoring what they're watching and consuming and the friends that they're playing with and things that they're hearing without being like a helicopter parent and like overly managing them.
Walking that fine line. Yeah, exactly.
Very fine line.
I would add also when there is a more quiet or reserved boy, not to just assume, well, that's great. He's not causing trouble. He's not hurting anyone. So being in his room for hours at a time, he's just playing video games, or it's okay that he doesn't share how he feels with us. Because his grades are good. I've heard all sorts of things where people tend to dismiss the quieter boys as not a problem. And I'm not saying quiet boys are a problem, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
Those may require even more check-ins or a little bit more development of conversation.
I think that series on Netflix called Adolescence. Have you seen that?
Terrifying.
Yeah, it's getting a lot of publicity. It's getting a lot of awards right now and well-deserved. But it really, I think, addresses some of these points you're making right now about incel mentality. You also mentioned pornography. And I will say, without question, that the pornography that kids are seeing now is contributing to some of this manosphere attitude, because it's certainly not the porn or the Playboys that I looked at when I was a little kid. Okay. It's so much worse. And it does create this horrible idea of what sex is.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah. I talked about it on my stories a couple weeks ago. And when I mentioned that like 9 was the average age that boys come across porn for the first time, so many people were like, what do you mean? Like, how does that happen? And I'm like, honestly, boys Googling things like boobs, butts, penis, all the weird, gross things that boys like to say and be gross about. You Google that, then you're finding images, then you're finding porn sites, then you're like, and it's very quick. Like it's right there very, very easily. If kids are just simply Googling, body parts because they're being silly and goofy and funny. And then one thing leads to another and you're like, oh shit. And then now there's AI and there's boys undressing girls with AI in school. There's games that are created about really horrible situations that men are placing women in. It feels really hard to manage and rein in and be on top of all of the time.
I can't imagine growing up and seeing stuff you can see now on your phone as a 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old boy that I can't imagine it. I think it would have completely warped my sense of sex and the way I look at women. I really think it would have affected that negatively. There's no question about it. It's all part of this bigger manosphere.
It's so normalized. Like, I had a man take a photo of me and use AI to undress me and then sent it to me. I was stunned. It literally took me out for the day. I was like, my brain could not brain anymore.
Oh my God.
And I was like, that was a wild experience. I've had hate. I've had death threats. I've had all sorts of things. Never had somebody take a fully closed photo of me, use AI to undress me, and then show it to me. And I can't imagine like what young girls, how that would absolutely destroy them.
Yeah. It's happening,
and
right?
Just a normalization of it that boys are doing it, that Twitter is doing it, that AI is doing it. Sometimes it feels like a losing battle.
Because you have to wonder, like, when will the escalation stop, and how do we remove permission from men to act that way? And I say this facetiously, Abby, but like your fatal error was to suggest, in your work that women deserve to be valued and, deserve women to have men that show up for them, right? Such a radical idea. For something like that, to elicit a man to like, threaten to sexually assault you or something. It's just, to me, the level of escalation and violence and degradation that is permissible for people to say out loud. And yes, there's the anonymity of the internet, but there's also now not, because like you said, this manosphere where people are saying it out loud to millions of people. And thinking that that's okay.
Yeah.
I agree. I don't know how we end that.
I don't either.
I think there's a way we can end on a positive note here. If that's possible.
I don't know.
But I will say, I do feel like there's a growing movement, and there are thought leaders out there right now who are addressing these issues. Michelle and I were just talking before we got on, talking about the work that people like Scott Galloway are doing right now. With he's a podcaster and an author and a professor, and I really admire his work. And he has this new book out about raising boys. Jonathan Haidt, right, in his book is really fantastic. So I think you're seeing this pushback, right, and people who are talking and even politicians to a certain degree are doing it. So.
Yeah.
I guess we have to find the positive in this somehow.
I don't know. You and I disagree, because that's what we were talking about before the show, is that like I really value what Scott Galloway is saying about the manosphere and men, but he's been banging that drum for a decade. And
I think people are finally listening.
Are they though? I don't know. I know you're trying to end this on a positive note, but these are not new ideas that he's suddenly come to. He's been sounding the alarm.
So this will not end on a positive note for me.
I mean, there's nuance to everything, right? But
I think I have seen, I was, right before we got on this call, I was looking at a video where like a male creator, and I'd seen it previously a couple weeks ago, where he had said, men, what radicalized you through red pill content? Or no, it was what got you out of it. Men, what was the thing that took you out of that journey down this path? And the comments were really, really, really good, incredibly eye-opening, very sad. And then I just saw one again where he said, what was the thing that led you to this? And also so sad, but there are more men that are having these conversations now, and we do need it. We absolutely need it desperately. It is hard. I am with Michelle. Like it's really disheartening when it's like reading some of the comments and they were like, hey, just like seeing women as people, having empathy. And I'm like, it's really hard to see that like you didn't see other people as people before, like worth respect, worth humanity. It took something else to directly affect you to be like, oh, hey, those are people. Like, I hope that something will turn. For me, all I'm gonna keep doing is loving my sons and having conversations with them and helping them love other men platonically and understanding that like those are really important things to cultivate and to have and to continue to do, and hopefully work to keep raising the next generation of men who are critical thinkers and can push back with confidence on the horrible rhetoric that's being pushed right now.
I love that.
I know.
You're fighting the good fight, Abby. So we commend you for
I'm trying.
that.
Yeah. Well, acknowledging how hard it is.
Parenting right now isn't easy for anybody.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I feel a lot of kinship with you. I have 3 girls, but for me, the issue is like, the onslaught of body image and, other stuff that, they can't get away from.
It's these kind of conversations that we're having today that I think are going to move the needle. So, let's just keep having them, right? And Abby, keep doing the work you're doing. It's fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much.
And I would also say for those male listeners out there who aren't part of that culture, who are just kind of good guys walking around on the planet, like, thinking about what they can do in a proactive way to counter those messages. Because it's going to take all of us. And, sometimes there are guys who consider themselves good guys. And so they don't really put effort into doing more than that. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but you know what I mean? It's like, I'm one of the good guys, so I can live my life. And I know I'm living it the way I want to, but it will take more than that.
Yeah.
Abby Eckel is an educator, online content creator, and the mother of 2 sons, ages 8 and 10. You can find her at abbyeckel.com. Instagram handle is at abbyeckel. I could have kept talking to Abby another hour. We didn't have an hour to talk to her, but this was a great conversation, Michelle, and just, such an important topic and something you and I, we reference, quite a bit, but ultimately,
something's got to give, right? Like
something's got to give.
Yeah, we can't sustain what's happening right now with men and boys. And I want to be clear, we're not blaming, men and boys or trying to make them feel guilty about what's going on. I think, there's a lot of external influences that are just kind of pelting boys in particular with these messages. And it's just not sustainable for our culture. Like the trajectory of not just our country, but our world is being defined by this in a lot of ways. And so if we don't course correct, if we don't start to implement the things that we talked about with Abby, I just don't see how we get back on a path of like humanity and where everybody gets to thrive and, where respect gets put back into the conversation about how to treat people.
Yeah, we were talking during the conversation about the origins or what could be origins of some of this behavior, or and I was thinking like the iPhone came out in like 2006. I think social media really took off around 2013, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
that's when you started seeing,
and that's where you see the graphs go off the charts in terms of all these negative consequences and pathways.
Yeah, and then shortly thereafter, we had a certain person go into office who, whose, let's just say, approach to dialogue and cruelty and bad behavior may or may not be influencing some of this, sort of a trickle-down effect.
Yeah. We've talked about the divisiveness a lot in terms of like everyone digging in their heels for their team. And this feels like one of those things where, people can laugh off the cruelty from someone on their team but then get outraged by something on the other team. And it's just this cycle of, staying tribal. And I think that's part of why we haven't been able to address this issue that we talked about today, because people are very entrenched and they feel very offended. Like I said, I'm not trying to offend men as a monolith. As with any kind of social ailment in the world, certain groups end up having to take more responsibility for the cure than other groups. And in this particular case, I do believe men need to bear more of the responsibility on helping to fix this issue.
If I had a cruelty meter, it would have been going off the charts the past 10 years ish. Right.
Yeah.
And it just seems like it's getting worse and worse. And it's almost like a contagion in many ways. It
is.
Something.
And it's changed the discourse in a way that's so damaging. You think of like, I don't know, it's starting to treat like human traits as like finite resources. Like you could say there's only a certain amount of money in the world. So I'm going to hoard my part and I don't want this group to get any of my money because then I have less money. There's people who think that way. But now we're thinking that way in terms of like humanity, what, and I don't want to get too far off topic, but like what really disgusted me about the discourse around the recent woman in Minneapolis that was murdered is that like people decided whether or not to care about that based on her demographics.
Right.
And to me, that's part of the cruelty, right? Is waiting to see what labels that person had before deciding whether you thought it was justified or not justified.
Yeah, no, I saw that too.
I think it does tie back to what we're talking about in terms of just having this black and white thinking. What I really love, though, about talking to Abby about her young boys is that it's a real opportunity to talk about intervening early. Because that's how we're going to affect change, right? Is bringing up boys to embody healthy masculinity, not to remove masculinity. That's absolutely not what I'm advocating for. Redefine what healthy masculinity is, and to have more overlap in traits. To stop saying like, well, masculine means these traits and feminine means these traits, but to say like, why can't traits like empathy and healthy emotional expression and vulnerability and strength, why can't those be traits that both can have at the same time? That's what I'll never understand is why we can't attribute certain traits to everyone, regardless of who they are, or to aspire to those traits, I should say. So if you're sitting there and you're thinking, oh, I don't want my boy to grow up like a pussy, or like, I need him to man up and not cry and do all this stuff, it's like, but why? Why is that important to you?
Yeah.
And then when we have schools and households and workforces and social circles where these traits are valued, regardless of sex or gender, how is that a bad thing? I need someone to explain that to me.
I can't do that.
Kelly, you have all the answers. Give them to me now. Clearly, I'm activated, right?
You're triggered on this. It's above my pay grade.
But come on, these are 8 and 10-year-olds. You understand the opportunity we have in their development and in their cognitive development to intervene. I mean, this is just the prime window to start setting those messages, in healthy ways. Both men and women, they don't even have a fully developed brain before the age of 25, men even later, actually. But when you think about that, when that early adolescence, young adult period, that's like 10 years where their brain is wiring in a way that's either going to send them in one direction or another, right? And the neuroplasticity of the brain means that depending on how their brain is wiring is then like, as a 25 or 30-year-old, their brain looks different with 10 years of social media under their belt versus if they didn't have that. If they had 10 years of misogynistic messaging versus if they didn't. So it's actually changing their brain.
Well, and it's brainwashing. You just call it what it is, right?
Yeah. But even on like a biological, physiological level, it is changing the neuronal connections in their brain, which then makes it so much harder to rewire. So not just like emotionally and mentally deprogramming someone. At that point, you're asking a lot of someone to like rewire their brain at that point. Not that you can't. It's not a lost cause.
Well, look, I fully support, age gating when it comes to, a lot of social media. Quite frankly, 16 is too low. I would make it 18. Why not? I know there's a lot of money involved, but there's a lot of stake too.
And I have a lot of empathy for parents that have a hard time holding that line. I mean, I myself,
Sure.
even though I hold the line, like it hurts. It hurts me to see my beautiful, sweet kid pleading with me, like, please, can I have this? And I, my friend, I feel excluded. And like, that's very hard to hear. And there is a part of me that's like, oh man, I just want to take that misery away. So I'll say yes, but it's like, I cannot.
Yeah, but if you didn't have that issue, if it was like across the board, if every parent was in the same boat where you didn't have to say no to your kid because guess what? They just don't have access to it. That'd be such an easier lift for you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Right? That's what Australia's doing.
Yeah. There's parental responsibility and then there's societal responsibility, and both have to, interact. But my point is just that I have empathy for it. I'm not claiming that it's an easy ask for a parent to hold the line when there's such an onslaught of temptation.
As an adult, I feel like I get tempted to be on social media more, and I'm not on TikTok, and I've gotten shit about that. I'm not on Facebook. I've gotten shit about that. I feel like I'm left out of a lot of things, but it's a decision that I've made. I mean, this is not going to be solved in a day. It's taken years to create. It's going to take years to fix, if we even can fix it. But ultimately, it's having these conversations like today with Abby. I think it can move the needle a little bit. I mean, it has to. What's the alternative? So let's just hope that there is some course correction that can happen with some of the stuff, because like you said, it's not sustainable. This is just not,
And you know what? Talking to you, I joke that you're a Pollyanna, but talking to you does make me feel hopeful. You kind of hold the hope for both of us, which I think is lovely. And that is also contagious. It's what I try to do for clients, in therapy as well. But as we wrap up, let's think of like one thing someone could do.
We all feel powerless right now. We need to enact more laws and more age gating when it comes to some of this content. And that means talking to our representatives and screaming from the hilltop, this has got to stop. And they get enough pressure, they're going to do something. Otherwise, they're going to lose their jobs. Do not relent on this topic. This is too important.
I love that.
It all comes down to money, right? These bros in the Manosphere are making lots of money because people are clicking or people are watching them.
If we're in a space where someone is being degraded, if we do need to start speaking up more collectively to say, what, that's not okay. I renege permission to be cruel, because we need to start taking back that authority over inhumanity.
It is a First Amendment conversation, a lot of it.
Yeah. And I don't mean to like police language or anything even remotely like that. I just mean in our own lives with our own family members and friends, make clear that we're not going to contribute to the cruelty or of thinking of groups as less than.
Yeah.
I think the reality testing piece is important too. So if someone is talking in a way, just kind of checking in with them to be like, wait, do you actually believe women have less value than men? Yes or no? Simplify the cruelty and then put it back on them to say like, I just want to know, like, is that actually something you believe? Because most people will say no.
But that's not what I'm hearing.
Then why are we perpetrating it? Yeah, exactly.
You reflect back to them what they're saying, and they're like, wait, I didn't say that. Yes, you did. This is exactly what you said.
Yeah.
This is how you said it. Well, I didn't mean it that way. Well, then what did you mean?
Right.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, that curiosity piece. I'm not trying to shame anyone, but I think having people really commit to what they're actually saying by clarifying, by restating, by checking in, like, is that what you mean? Just like you said, those are ways to hold people accountable for what they're messaging. If you're struggling with family, friends, or just life in general,
in a bad relationship and wondering what to do,
or you want a relationship and to set yourself up for success,
then we want to talk to you. So make your appointment on Unrelating.
To be a guest, ask a question, or recommend a topic, drop us an email at theunrelatingpodcast@gmail.com.
And be sure to follow us on Instagram and YouTube.